Today I'd like to talk about an aspect of Chapter 5 of Stearns, which kind of covers the end of Period 2, the end of the Classical era. In front of you, you're going to see a map that we haven't talked about because we have focused largely on the core areas of the Mauryan Gupta, the Han, Greece, and Rome. But there is a need to talk about this area, the area we'd call the periphery, the impact that the core area and its development has on the long term on these areas. In short, the world changes because of the big classical empires of period 2. So today I want to talk about the core and the periphery, not the core versus the periphery. The core, in my definition, are the main empires that we see during period 2. The periphery, in my opinion, are those societies, soon to be civilizations and empires of their own, that have been impacted or influenced by the core. See, during the classical era, 600 BCE to 600 CE, we see the rise of very large foci, the very large core. They're not just countries, they are empires, and they last, for some of them, 500 years. So my point is, they amassed a lot of land, and then they organized that land. And that's what I mean by internal integration. They created major religions and philosophies that are not just going to be an impact on their empire during the reign of their empire, but they endure. They go on and still are around today. And they haven't just endured in the areas in which they were created, they have expanded around the world. In fact, a lot of the spice traditions of period 2 are still the spice traditions of today, from Christianity to the Greek tragedies to urbanization. This is the era we see the rise of Southernization and basically see the roots of Westernization. Now, why the shift from period 2 to period 3? I mean, who sat down in the AP world and said, we need to kind of break up things and we need to identify this era as being the shift from period 2 to period 3? So when does one end and one start? Well, first we have to look at it. Between 200 and 500 CE, we see the fall of the Han, the Romans, and the Gupta, at least the Western Romans. So now that the large foci politically don't exist, we can now see what happens in their aftermath. And what we see in their aftermath is the rise of the periphery, the rise of Arabs, and the new emergence of Islam. We see the globalization not of Roman Empire, but the globalization of what Rome created. Christianity and its religion, and of course the Silk Road and the trade between China and the West. We also see this as the era where politically and economically empires are going to rise now throughout this world, not just in 3 large foci, but we're going to have the Mongol conquest, the rise of the Arab religious and political kingdoms, and of course the periphery regions of Japan are going to develop. So now we enter the post-classical period. The post-classical period will be defined as 600 to 1450, right before Columbus. Westernization bursts apart, seeing a divide between Western Roman Empire, which will be Western Europe, and the Eastern Roman Empire, which is the Byzantine. In fact, Stearns gives the West chapter 10 and the Byzantine chapter 9. So we're going to get into those a little bit more. We're going to see the rise of the Middle East and North Africa. they're going to unite under the banner of Islam, which will create a political and economic unity. So down here, we're going to see the rise of the original caliphates, for example. This will be discussed in chapter 6, 7, and 8 of Stearns. There's going to be a lot of new foci. For example, here is the large foci of the Chinese empires from the Han to the Tang to the Song and such. But now we're going to focus over here on Korea, Japan, Vietnam, for example, which is in Stearns. They are impacted by the original foci of period 2, but they each do have their own unique political, religious, and economic beliefs. During this post-classical period, we have theme 1. It's the spread of world religions, and those religions are going to affect society, who's in charge politically, cultural values, who people deal with economically. Up here you see how Islam dominates the belt of the world here, starting here in Saudi Arabia. The mostly Catholic and then, of course, Protestant regions of northern West Europe and North America, So I love AP World for a variety of reasons, but one of them is we have now studied the birth of these cultures and religions and philosophies. Now we get to follow them as they develop. Theme 2. The world network will kind of get more complex. We are going to not only see down here the Silk Road, but you also see the Indian Ocean trade as technology develops. And of course, eventually we're going to have the Mongols conquering. And in their conquering, they're going to develop new societies, new countries. Russia here develops because of the Mongol quest starting here. And lastly, political themes trumped by religious economic themes. And I hope I said this well. I kind of maybe said it backwards. We used to look at the Roman society being led by an emperor and having an empire, political spreading of a society. Well, we don't need to have country or empire borders for the world to continue to develop. They will develop religiously and economically because they'll be tied with not just their certain foci, but more of a global foci. So what I wanted to do today is take us from period 2 to period 3, but see how they kind of needed each other